It's another Yo-Jo June, and tonight we're going to talk about G.I. Joe the movie. Now, I had the whole Shazam Dan family, or the whole Spider-Man Dan family, or the Yo-Jo juveniles, I guess. They're not really juveniles. And we watched these movies because I'm like, hey, you know, this is Yo-Jo June. We gotta Joe it up, and we're gonna watch a bunch of stuff. They were this is gonna be a good pun. They were very gung ho about doing it until it came time about doing it. It was murder on them. It was torture. It was torture. They promised that they'll watch one of the other ones, but yeah. So let's just go back. Let's go back in the olden days. Let me take out my dentures here and go back to the olden days. I was very much, as a kid, or as you know, or as you yourselves probably, you the listeners probably are in the same boat. We're, back in the day, we were into like the G.I. Joes, and we were into the Transformers, and I was very much into both lines. And then Transformers the movie came out, and it's actually probably one of my favorite IP Hasbro toy line big screen commercial project. I even to this day, I still really like the Transformers the movie. I was super excited when it finally came out on Blu-ray, and I might have bought it like three different times, three different stages of my life. I mean, I really dug that movie, and I know like a lot of people, or I don't know anybody in my life that was ever affected by that movie. But the news organizations always were upset about it was the death of Optimus Prime, and that's what that movie killed the franchise because Hasbro had the smart idea of, well, instead of we're just discontinuing these figures, instead of just writing them out of the movie, or writing them out of the project or whatnot, let's just kill them off on screen and scar the children for life. I must have been at the age where I just didn't give a damn. I thought that was cool. I didn't care that Optimus died. I think like Netflix had like a series, I think like The Toys That Made Us or whatever, where they talk about that, and where like I guess like the new line wasn't as successful, and I was a child during that time. The death of Optimus Prime didn't dissuade me from playing with that character, playing with that action figure, nor did it dissuade me from getting into the new action figures. I had Hot Rod, and I had Blur, and a couple other the new characters from the movie. But I think also like a lot of times when I refer to that time, is that we're kind of getting close to when I'm kind of getting out of that and kind of becoming, I don't know, an adult. Air quotes, is that a thing? I was totally into that, and I remember going to the theaters, and I'm pretty sure that the G.I. Joe poster, G.I. Joe the movie poster, was always in the coming soon section, of the movie theater. I was always excited to see that. I was like, my two most favorite franchises are in the theater, and I was stoked for G.I. Joe to come to the theater. And it never came, and it just never got there. And I don't know, for a while there, I know, like, we were like a weekly movie going family, but there's stuff that happens, and you don't always there's other things that you have to do at that time, and I understand that not everything, I didn't get to see everything in the theater. You end up missing it, and you catch it when it comes out in VHS. It's just a thing that happens. This thing that happens currently. It's just life. Damn it. So I kind of maybe thought that was the thing. Years later, learning that it became because of the poor sales for My Little Pony the movie, and poor sales for Transformers, and the negative kickback for killing all the characters in Transformers the movie, G.I. Joe the movie went direct to video. I mean, ironically, I think G.I. Joe the movie was supposed to be the first one out, and then it ended up being the last one out, and it just went directly to video. So now we go back into the Wayback Machine. We go to when I went to we didn't have Blockbuster Video, by the way. But so we went to our local video store, which was Queen Street Video. And I remember seeing G.I. Joe the movie in the kiddie section available on video. And I was kind of like stoked about it. I was super excited. I was like, oh, there's this movie I wanted to see in the theater. Here it's on video. Although I think back then I still like have some vague memories of thinking that, this wasn't the one that was supposed to go in the theater because, you had like Mass Device and The Revenge of Cobra and stuff. You had these G.I. Joe movies that kind of just want, they didn't really go directly to video because I think a lot of that stuff came out before video was a thing. But a lot of those things were like TV movies. So I kind of felt like maybe this was like a TV movie that came to video or something special that came to video. And usually, back then, and I guess it still kind of rings true today, is things that kind of were direct to video kind of had this stink about them, or it's just like, oh, well, these weren't even good enough to even make it into the theater. There's something wrong with it. There was something wrong with it. And I remember renting it, finally, getting to rent it, finally watching it, and honestly, it's not my favorite G.I. Joe property. I'm sorry. There's a lot of fans out there that quote this movie, and I stare at them dumbly like, I don't understand this. After watching it, I think I wanted to have it on VHS. It's not a movie that I ever owned on VHS. I don't think they ever made it available to the public, or at least as far as I know. Who knows? Let's see here. When did this come out? 1987. So I was like 11 or 12 at that time. It's like, and I don't think like, I don't recall like these movies becoming readily available, or it could just be the area that we lived in. That stuff ever became available to VHS, because I don't think I got Transformers the movie until years later. So here, watching this several years later, I got it on Blu-ray. I half feel like my Blu-ray is a bootleg copy because it's like they didn't do a very good job producing it. I mean I guess it's fine. I don't know. I guess it is what it is, because I guess nobody really is asking for this movie, so no real effort was put into producing the Blu-ray. But I kind of feel like the cover seems like faded. It doesn't seem like it's not like a high quality print job or anything. And I think I've watched it a total maybe like 3 or 4 times in my entire life, where it's like I've watched like Ferris Bueller like a bajillion times. This is not something I've watched on the regular. And again, like I said, trying to watch this with the whole Shazam damn family, Joe. I'll come up with something eventually. The Joe kids. No, that's horrible. Watching it with them and them just kind of losing distance, it's like, that you got that splashy opening where it's all around the Statue of Liberty, and it's you got kind of the Cobra, that song going on, and a lot of moving like that. I don't even think the camera holds still for 1 second of that whole intro. And they're into it and I'm into it, and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then the story kicks in. And I think like Transformers suffers from the same way. But I don't know why the nostalgia for Transformers is different for me than it is for G.I. Joe. But it's just really like the story has no time to breathe. Like it's going boom, 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 boom. It just keeps moving and moving and moving. It's like we've got 2 hours of this commercial to fill, and we're going to fill the absolute crap out of it, and it's just moving super fast, and I'm trying to focus on the plot line, so because it's like I got a podcast to produce, I got to take notes, and I'm trying to focus, and I got such a freaking headache because it's just trying to bear down what's going on. Kyra in the room, I don't think has experienced much of the Joe stuff. Riley and I, we were watching like when they first brought it to live streaming. We would sit here and we would watch it on live stream and bust on it, and we would watch a couple episodes on our own to kind of just bust on it and stuff. And she's kind of familiar with a lot of the characters and who they are, what their backgrounds are. I think Kyra's kind of coming in with a fresh slate, and this isn't really generated for someone who's just walking in the door. It's not really, it doesn't really hinder, or it doesn't really not hinder, it doesn't really hinge on newcomers trying to get into this. I don't know if like Transformers, I guess maybe. I mean, because Transformers does a time skip, and then you're kind of going with the new, you don't going with Daniel and an adult. Is it Sam? No, adult Spike. I can't remember which. I came here prepared to talk about G.I. Joe, not Transformers. It really shows when you're looking at it through the eyes of, oh, this was a marketing scheme. This was to sell toys. They sure as hell made sure to jam pack new characters in whenever and wherever they can. They kind of downgrade a lot of characters. Falcon takes center stage, of course, but like you don't really get much out of Duke. You don't really get much out of Hawk. If you're into the series and you're into Scarlet and some of these other characters, I think Scarlet gets I don't think you even see Scarlet, but Scarlet gets lines that's off screen, which ties back to the whole Optimus Prime thing. So, if you didn't know, G.I. Joe, the movie, was going to do the exact same thing as Transformers. Oh, we're going to cycle some of these characters out. We're not going to produce the toys anymore. We're going to cycle some new characters back in. And in doing so, we're instead of instead of just not having them in, we're just going to off them on screen. In particular, we're going to off Duke. We offed Optimus Prime, and now we're going to off Duke. They changed it. So when Backlash came up with Transformers, they changed G.I. Joe. And Duke has it's a very obvious death scene with very obvious voiceovers added to assure children that Duke didn't die. Duke takes a snake spear. Serpentor has snakes on the top of his cloaks that he can turn into spears, and he throws one and thrusts it through Duke's chest. I think he's actually thrusting it. He's throwing it at Hawk, and I think Duke kind of saves Hawk, and he takes the snake, and he takes a snake to the heart. If you haven't seen this movie and you're trying to follow along with that description, it's a pretty wild description, isn't it? But yeah, it's pretty clear that he was supposed to die, and then it's just like 1 second later, I think it's like Doc or somebody's like, oh, he just entered a coma. You took a snake to the heart. You probably lost like 50% of your arteries there, and your heart, your valves, and you just slipped into. He just happened to slip into a coma. And then, by the end of the film, there's an obvious voiceover again. I think it's like Scarlet. G.I. Joe's won the day. They've defeated Cobra. And, you just hear, they're all celebrating their victory. And then you hear Scarlet just randomly say, Duke's gonna make it. He's gonna be fine. Man, the 80s were such a freaking weird time. An impact as an adult, like again, I guess because it had I don't want to say negative impact. It just didn't have any lasting impact as far as in comparison to like Transformers the movie. I think if I would have seen this in the theaters, it might have had a more lasting impact than seeing it in the videos or seeing it on VHS rather. There's always that negative stink that's always with like the VHS back in the days with the direct-to-video stuff, and I just kind of associated with that. My 11 or 12-year-old mind at that time. Probably just associated with this is a direct to video direct, and they didn't really take their time, which they may have taken more time than expected. And like I said, again, like pacing wise, there's just a lot going on. You get stuff with like and I used to. Up until like maybe this past week when I finally watched this video, I always like associated Falcon with going to because he goes to Sergeant Slaughter to get trained. That he's going to get whipped into shape. He's not going to get any corporal punishment or arrested or anything for basically like letting Serpentor escape. But he's going to get go to boot camp with Sergeant Slaughter. And I always associated the crew that's with him as Slaughter's Marauders, which is a thing, but it's not for that movie. It's the Slaughter's Renegades, where we have like three new characters, which we have Mercer, which actually is kind of my favorite. I kind of like the fact that he's an ex-Viper. Red Dog and Taurus are the three characters that are there. And then of course you have them whipping Falcon into shape. You can assume that there's a lot of training off screen that's going on. I mean, you see like snippets of him getting whipped into shape. But then it's like next thing you know that they discovered where the Cobra base is, and everybody shows up. Everybody shows up. So then there's a scene where they introduce all the new characters, which I don't think these are the only new characters, or like there may have been characters that were peering into on the TV series, and they're like, oh, well, we have to make this character appear on screen. Because I know like Lifeline like makes an appearance. Like there's a lot of characters. I mean, there's a lot of Joes to begin with, but there's a lot of characters that you just kind of see like once or twice in the background, just so that they can sell another unit of that character, I guess. They do a scene where they introduce the rookies, which of course includes Jinx, Law and Order, big Lob. Because I guess we did Refrigerator Perry, so now we have to do like a basketball star, but I don't even know if Big Lob is. I mean, they did it quite a bit because the Red Dog is an ex-football player, so they kind of tie in a lot of like the sports. They're trying to get the sports kids into this thing. You get Tunnel Rat, and of course you get Chuckles, and then of course Falcon. And I mean, this is kind of a weird thing. This is, I guess, this is the first appearance of Chuckles. Well, I guess it is the first appearance of Chuckles, obviously the rookie, but no lines whatsoever. Has no lines of dialogue throughout the entire movie. I'm like, has he even spoken once? And and the other producer Paul was like, no, I don't think he said a darn thing the entire time. Everybody else has lines except for him. So we're introduced to our new lines of figures. We're introduced to our new lines of baddies, which include Globulus. I remember this because they were a 3-pack. So it was like Globulus, Nemesis Enforcer, and here we go. Let's put this to the test, Paul. You got this Pythona, and then of course you got their other people. You got the troop builders for that, but I don't remember. I mean, I guess there was troop builders. I guess I can't think of the name of the other. They kind of look like moths. I don't like this. Cobra Team is so weird. I like the whole like snake theme to them, and then you kind of sometimes stray away from the snake theme, and you got kind of like this moth bug thing kind of going on with them as well. And I mean, Globulus was so weird. Globulus, it was an action figure where it was just a body with a bendy tail, with a elongated bendy tail. And I just recall not wanting the figure with the bendy tail. I wanted the way he appeared in the movie, where it was just the body on top of this big ball. But yeah, so they come out of the shadows, and they reveal that Cobra Law was a thing. They had to, when the coming of man, they had to retreat into the Himalayas. I can say that, I swear, Himalayas. And they're trying to bring their emperor back to them. Well, it's not even bring the emperor to Cobra Law. It's to that they're going to exact revenge on the humans that kind of chased them away, almost brought them to extinction. This was like back in caveman days, and now they're going to launch these spores into the air and turn them all into snake people, I believe, and then they're going to rule. Very weird premise. Very weird. I guess a lot of cocaine must have been being had in that writer's room. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that like that stage of G.I. Joe, so I can't fault them. I like the stage. I mean, I'm not completely familiar with. I do read like a lot of like coming attractions or previews, or did you know, or kind of thing, because it's mostly I'm into the nostalgia of the Joes, but I'm not really into reading like the new books. I'm kind of like same with like Transformers, where I'm just facet of just a singular era. I'm into G1 Transformers, and anything outside of that is just kind of added dreck. There's a lot of comics, I guess, like Boom or whatever, or IDW. They continued the Transformers comics, and it's like, well, I kind of find it interesting, but I'm not really interested in it anymore, because it's the 2000s, 2020s look at a thing that came out in the 80s where we're just kind of continuing the story, where it's like it wasn't something that was in the 80s and then just kind of continued to now. It's just all this nostalgia driven kind of stuff. And I don't hate it. I like the idea that they're bringing fans in and people are continuing reading it and continuing to consume the material. But for me, it's not something that I'm generally interested in. It's fine. I like the trivia of it, I guess you could say. And kind of the same thing with the Joe books, where it's like it's kind of the same thing. However, with the Joes, I'm not really encapsulated in the 80s. I'm interested in the 90s teams. I'm actually interested. I became interested later on with the G.I. Joe Renegades show that came out probably in the 2000s, I think. I liked looking back in the toy lines and seeing how they progressed and seeing like more modern stuff. Not things that are just not hung up on the 80s version, but we've updated them. That's why I kind of like the classified series, where it's like, well, here's the 80s characters, but here's a modern twist on them. And I actually kind of wish that, when it comes to the classified series, that they will do like modern characters add to it. I mean, I think like the Joes for me is a little bit different than the Transformers, whereas like Transformers, I'm just stuck in G1. I'm not really into Beast Wars. I'm not really into anything that's retroactively written. But the Joes, I'm still kind of interested in like the further adventures of Joes, and I don't know how to delineate that or explain the difference of what the difference of that is. So with all that being said, is that I kind of like the idea where where I've read where in modern comics where Cobra is an underground society, that they're a race of people that exist, and that whether or not that's related to the movie, I don't know. I haven't read the comics in that much detail to know or understand. But my understanding is it's kind of a rebooted look to it, and that that there's a kind of a power struggle between Cobra Commander and Serpentor, where Serpentor is the emperor of the society, and Cobra Commander is the leader of his army, but he's got dubious means. I kind of like that idea. As a matter of fact, I just said that I don't read any of the modern comic books. I've read the I think it's Civil War. No, it might be just the title called Cobra. It's a series arc where Chuckles goes undercover, and he joins Cobra, and he's undercover for the Joes, and his communication device, which they implant in a molar, gets damaged, and he's unable to actually reach out and tell the team what's going on. He's doing spy stuff, and it was a very, very cool and very interesting way to bring about the character. And it's just the way that I kind of like the G.I. Joe stuff anyway. I kind of like it in that sci-fi fantasy realm, not real world realm. I remember as a kid, and the other kids in the playground would always complain about, here the G.I. Joe's introduced space travel. Oh, that sucks. Oh, well, now we're going to have aliens. Oh, that's not what G.I. Joe is all about. And it's like, well, have you ever really watched G.I. Joe cartoons? They're about that stuff. And I'd rather it be about that kind of stuff, more sci-fi kind of stuff than real world stuff. That's fine. I'd rather some of that weirdness. I mean, matter of fact, there's a line. There was a series, and I think they're bringing them out again in Classified, where they've had zombies. They've introduced zombies in the line. That's fine. I mean, I'd rather zombies than what were some of the stuff. Now I was out of the line by the time this came out, but I remember what is it? DEF, Drug Enforcement Federation? No, Drug Elimination Force. Where they tried to make the Joes, because we were all about drugs are bad, so they made the Joes fight drug dealers and stuff. I don't want that. We can skip that. And the other one was the Eco Warriors, which we can totally skip that. That's where everything is neon colored, and all their weaponry squirts water for some reason. We can kind of skip that. Although I'd assume that like maybe the zombies would come from kind of something like that. We could skip. We just modify it a little bit. Anyway, I got far off base with G.I. Joe the movie. So overall, like it's fine. It's a good watch. It's probably like a handful of times that I've ever watched that. And it's fine. It's a fine watch to watch every now and then, but it's not. I go to Transformers the movie. That's my go-to more so than this one. So if I were to rank it so far, we only have G.I. Joe the movie. This is the first movie that I'm talking about for Yojo June, and then we have Cats. Cats way down here, way at the bottom. I'm going to probably put G.I. Joe the movie probably in the level 3 tier. I'll probably modify this and actually do the the tier rankings later on. But yeah, like if we had the number 1 movie, the number 2 movie, number 3 movie, and then Cats, I would put it above Cats. It's an okay movie. It's a fine movie. You get Sergeant Slaughter. You do get the slaughterhouse. You get the not slaughterhouse. You get he calls it the slaughterhouse, but you get the Renegades. I don't know if they ever did more with the Renegades after that. I mean, that's another thing. When Transformers the movie was over, I was still watching Transformers cartoons. There was still the Return of Optimus Prime and stuff. I don't recall, like when G.I. Joe the movie was over, I don't recall watching G.I. Joe afterwards, because looking up Wikipedia articles and looking up things to give me like episode synopsises to see what I've watched or what I haven't watched, or see what I can fire up in those old memory banks. And when I look up stuff that's post G.I. Joe the movie, that's when Deke took over. And I've watched a couple like Deke episodes. They don't really have full episodes, at least I didn't find any full episodes, but they have highlights. And I don't recall ever watching, like I kind of somewhat remember the intros to the Deke cartoons, but I don't remember the episodes themselves. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, God, the animation, like not the Sunbow animation wasn't the best of the best, but God, the Deke animation is just horrible. It's horrendous. And I don't remember watching the cartoons much after the movie, but I do remember still having the toys because, I know that I wanted the Cobra Commander, the spacesuit Cobra Commander, which I think came out after the movie, and that's featured in the Deke cartoons. I never had the armored Cobra Commander as an action figure, but I did have he was in the comics. I did have the comics at that time, and I do have that appearance in the comics, or had that appearance in the comics. So I don't know. Like I think that's just the way it all went. Once the movie came out, the kind of strayed away from the series, and once I got away from the hooks of the corporation of Hasbro, I was free for another 30 years until now. And now it's like I just want to relive old memories. Just hook me up to my IV and pump those old memories into me. Not exactly the way I wanted to end the episode, but that's the episode for this week. You got a little bonus episode for the month. You got an extra piece. I don't know. Like there's actually a bunch. There's 4 movies, so we got at least. I might have to double up a couple more, or Yojo June might have to go into Yojo July a little bit. But yeah, that's it for tonight, and we will catch you in the next episode. Have a good one.